He thought his last breath would define him, but he was about to discover the measure of true loyalty. Kang Junho lay propped against the fine silk cushions of his high-rise apartment in Seoul, the city lights bleeding through the tall windows like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The room was nearly silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner, a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the emptiness left by his departing associates. His body, once a fortress of control and authority, now felt fragile, each shallow inhale a reminder that power could not shield him from mortality. In a corner, stepping lightly over the polished hardwood floor, was Mai. Her presence was quiet but unyielding, the only figure who had remained when every other face of the empire had vanished. The soft click of her shoes carried weight beyond their sound, a rhythm of unwavering fidelity that reached Kang Junho in ways no boast or threat ever could. He looked at her, the pale winter light caressing her dark skin, highlighting the calm determination in her eyes. For a moment, he remembered the countless times she had been underestimated, dismissed, or mocked by those who mistook meekness for weakness. He could see now the subtle dignity that had quietly endured under scorn, a strength invisible to all but those willing to look. The room held its breath as Kang Junho, struggling against the weakness in his chest, tried to speak. His voice was a rasp, each word deliberate, tinged with a vulnerability he rarely displayed. "Me? I need you," he said, the simplicity of the request carrying a weight he had never felt in the corridors of his empire. Mai approached, her movements measured and graceful, a study in contrast to the chaos of his past life. She did not flinch, did not speak before being spoken to. She was the embodiment of composure in a world that had often rewarded frenzy over patience. Kang Junho's gaze lingered on her hands as she straightened the throw pillows beside him, adjusted the thin blanket over his shoulders, gestures so mundane yet profound, acts of care that carried the resonance of 1,000 unspoken words. In those small movements, he recognized a kind of heroism stripped of spectacle, a courage that did not need applause. The city beyond the glass was alive, unaware of the quiet drama unfolding. Above its streets, shadows of neon danced across the floor, mingling with the warm lamplight, painting the scene with the richness of a cinematic tableau. Kang Junho felt a stirring in his chest, a mix of fear, regret, and an unexpected admiration for the steadfast woman before him. Every instinct, every lesson he had learned about power and influence, seemed to pale against the simple truth that loyalty and dignity could not be bought or coerced. They had to be recognized, honored, and, in rare moments, entrusted. Mai met his eyes, steady, unwavering, and without a single word, communicated that she understood the gravity of the moment, that she would meet the challenge of his last request, not with fear, but with integrity. The room went silent again, this time a silence filled with potential, as though the walls themselves were acknowledging the weight of what was to come. Kang Junho, usually a master of all he surveyed, realized in that instant that he was no longer in control, not of time, not of fate, but perhaps for the first time he had glimpsed the shape of true strength. The room remained still, the soft glow from the floor lamp casting long, lean shadows across the walls, each one seemingly moving with a quiet deliberation that mirrored the tension between Kang Junho and Mai. She moved toward the large window, brushing her fingers over the glass as though sensing the pulse of the city below, the lights of Seoul flickering like a constellation that only she could navigate. Kang Junho watched her with a mix of awe and disbelief, the weight of his previous life pressing against him. Yet he felt strangely unburdened in this suspended moment. The memories of betrayal, of empty promises and shifting loyalties, hovered just behind his eyelids, but Mai's calm presence anchored him in the present. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his with a steadfast resolve that made him inhale sharply, as if the air itself had thickened with the gravity of her intent. Each movement she made was purposeful, silent, and elegant, the type of motion that spoke louder than any words could. Kang Junho's mind, usually occupied with schemes and control, found itself uncharacteristically quiet, following her every gesture with a patience he did not know he possessed. He realized that every command, every expectation he had imposed in the past, paled in comparison to the quiet dignity with which she now stood before him. Mai approached the side table, selecting a small, simple object, a seemingly ordinary item that carried within it a significance known only to the two of them. She held it gently, presenting it to Kang Junho with a reverence that made his chest tighten, a moment heavy with unspoken understanding. He reached for it with trembling hands, feeling the warmth of her touch, the steadfastness of her loyalty, and the subtle power in her humility. For a long time, neither spoke, the city noises below muffled by the thick glass, the apartment a sanctum of reflection and respect. His eyes traced the lines of her face, noting the faint crease of concern that had always accompanied her quiet service, a mark of her humanity and the depth of her character. Mai's calmness in the face of the looming uncertainty, her ability to act with clarity and composure, began to erode the last vestiges of fear and pride that Kang Junho had carried like armor for decades. He realized that he had underestimated the potency of integrity, the subtle force that could unsettle a man accustomed to dominion over others, the invisible strength that had always resided in her. Time seemed to slow, the seconds stretching into moments of reflection, as he prepared to articulate a request that would require her to act with wisdom beyond what he had ever witnessed. Mai listened, her expression unreadable, yet the depth of understanding in her gaze told him that she was ready, that she had anticipated this pivotal moment. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that held the weight of consequence, a prelude to revelation. Kang Junho's voice, low and deliberate, finally broke the stillness, each word a measured invocation, a careful negotiation with fate itself. Mai's response was a subtle nod, a gesture that confirmed not only her readiness, but also the unspoken agreement that dignity and moral fortitude would guide the actions to come. Outside, the city continued, oblivious to the intimate exchange above its bustling streets, while inside, the apartment seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation, as if the walls themselves recognized the significance of this moment, the turning point where loyalty, courage, and integrity converged to redefine the course of what was about to unfold. The soft hum of the city below seemed to pulse in time with Kang Junho's uneven breaths as Mai moved carefully across the apartment, arranging the few remaining items with an almost ritualistic precision. The low lamplight traced the contours of her face, illuminating the quiet determination in her eyes, a steadfast resolve that contrasted with the frailty of the man who watched her from the bed. Each motion she made was deliberate, a choreography born of years of observing, anticipating, and adapting. Yet there was no haste, no unnecessary flourish, just the calm and measured execution of duty intertwined with genuine care. Kang Junho's gaze followed her, tracing the way her fingers adjusted the blanket over his shoulders, the way she smoothed the crease in the pillow, small gestures that seemed mundane but resonated deeply in the quiet of the room. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of surrender, not in fear, but in trust, an acknowledgement that power and control could be shared, or in this moment, quietly relinquished. Mai's presence was both grounding and transformative. She had the uncanny ability to fill the room with a sense of stability, making the vast, impersonal city outside feel smaller, almost intimate, as though the entire world had shrunk to the scale of their apartment, and the only thing that mattered was the integrity of their actions in that space. She paused by the window, glancing briefly at the skyline, her dark eyes reflecting the scattered city lights like a map of distant constellations, then returned to Kang Junho with a measured calm that belied the weight of the situation. His voice, when it came, was weak yet laced with an unspoken urgency. Mai, I need you to do something for me, something that cannot wait. She nodded without hesitation, a silent acknowledgement that she understood the magnitude of his request, her expression composed, unwavering, and full of the unspoken promise that she would act with integrity. Kang Joon-ho felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of relief, admiration, and a dawning realization that loyalty and true moral courage were far rarer than any empire he had ever commanded. The room remained quiet. Every object, every shadow, every flicker of light participating in a shared stillness that seemed to honor the gravity of the moment. He watched as I moved back toward the side table, selecting a small, unassuming object, her hands steady each. Movement deliberate and filled with significance. The apartment, usually filled with the background noise of high-rise life, was suspended in a moment of concentrated attention, the air thick with anticipation and a silent acknowledgement of the weight of the actions to come. As she held the object out to him, Kang Joon-ho reached forward with trembling hands, feeling the steadiness of her grip, the unspoken commitment in her posture, and the deep moral clarity that radiated from her presence. In that suspended moment, amidst the quiet and the muted glow of the city lights, he recognized a profound truth, that strength was not measured in power, influence, or fear, but in the steadfastness of character, the quiet courage to act with dignity, and the unwavering commitment to honor another's trust. Maya's eyes met his once more, steady and unflinching, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Kang Joon-ho allowed himself to feel hope, not for survival, but for the affirmation of something far greater, an enduring sense of respect, loyalty, and the quiet triumph of human dignity. The city lights outside the window glimmered like distant fires, but inside the apartment, the atmosphere was heavy with expectation. Kang Joon-ho lay reclined, his body weak, yet his eyes followed every motion of Mai with a newfound clarity, as though he could perceive the depth of her character in each deliberate gesture. She moved with quiet confidence, setting the items on the nearby table with precision, her dark skin catching the warm glow of the lamp, highlighting the calm authority she carried without a word. The apartment, usually a place of rigid hierarchy and protocol, now felt transformed into a sanctuary of subtle power and moral gravity. Every object she touched, every adjustment she made, resonated with a sense of purpose that seemed to stabilize the fragile room. Kang Joon-ho could feel a shift within himself, a softening of the hard edges that years of command had etched into his demeanor. He realized that the true influence in this room was not his, but hers, a quiet authority derived from integrity, patience, and unwavering loyalty. Mai paused, her gaze sweeping the apartment, noting the small imperfections and addressing them without fanfare, her actions speaking volumes more than any speech could. Kang Joon-ho observed her, his chest tight with recognition and a growing sense of humility, acknowledging the rare and precious quality of character she embodied. For years, he had ruled through fear and expectation, believing power was in dominance. But now he saw that strength could manifest in gentleness, in consistency, and in the moral clarity that Mai displayed. He could feel the lessons of his life condensed into this one moment, distilled into the recognition that true greatness is often quiet, invisible to the unobservant, yet impossible to ignore when witnessed in full measure. Mai returned to his side, her expression unreadable, yet her posture conveyed an unspoken understanding of his needs, her presence a testament to the unyielding virtue she carried. Kang Joon-ho's voice, faint but deliberate, broke the silence. "Mai, you understand what must be done." She nodded, her movements calm and deliberate, signaling that she was prepared to carry out his final request with the respect and thoughtfulness it deserved. The apartment seemed to hold its breath, the usual city noises muted as if in recognition of the gravity of the exchange above the streets. Every detail, from the soft furnishings to the patterns of light reflecting on the walls, contributed to the scene as though the space itself understood the solemnity and dignity of the moment. Kang Joon-ho felt an unfamiliar sense of peace, a quiet reassurance that the right action would be taken by the right person. Mai's composure and resolve provided him with a glimpse of something more enduring than power, a human connection rooted in respect, trust, and the quiet assertion of moral authority. As she positioned herself to perform the task he had requested, he felt a profound appreciation for the subtle ways in which true strength manifests, far beyond the reach of wealth or influence, grounded in the steadfast commitment to doing what is right, no matter the circumstances. In the stillness of the apartment, the glow of the city beyond contrasted with the intimate gravity of the room, creating a cinematic tableau where every glance, every gesture, and every breath carried the weight of quiet justice. And Kang Junho, observing Mai, understood in that instant the real measure of character and the enduring impact of integrity. The room held a fragile tension as Mai moved deliberately, her movements purposeful yet gentle, adjusting the final details around Kang Junho with an attentiveness that conveyed far more than mere obligation. The muted light from the lamp above their heads cast a warm glow across the space, highlighting the serene determination on her face, the quiet dignity that had guided her through countless moments of underestimation and dismissal. Kang Junho observed her with a growing sense of awe, the realization settling deep within him that loyalty and moral courage were forces more potent than any command he had ever issued. He had spent years surrounded by individuals who offered allegiance out of fear or interest, but Mai's presence here, unwavering and unshakable, demonstrated a depth of character that transcended circumstance. As she prepared to carry out his request, the room seemed to contract around them, the city outside fading to a soft hum, the apartment transformed into a world entirely defined by the integrity of her actions. Kang Junho's heart, usually encased in layers of pride and control, softened as he watched her, each gesture imbued with the clarity of purpose and the subtle power of quiet heroism. He could see the faintest crease of concentration on her brow, the precision with which she handled each item, the careful attention to detail that spoke of a lifetime of diligence and unassuming strength. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause, the air thick with anticipation, the shadows stretching and bending with the ebb of emotion that filled the room. Kang Junho spoke softly, his voice steady despite the weakness in his body. "Mai, you are the one I trust." She looked back at him, her dark eyes steady and unflinching, acknowledging the gravity of the moment with a simple nod, a gesture that carried the weight of understanding and the quiet promise to act with integrity. Every sound, every flicker of light, seemed amplified in the stillness, creating a cinematic tableau that emphasized the significance of her actions and the magnitude of the lesson he was absorbing. In that moment, Kang Junho comprehended what he had overlooked for so long. That true strength was not measured by fear or control, but by the steadfast adherence to principles, the ability to act with moral clarity, and the courage to honor another's trust without expectation of reward. Mai moved with careful deliberation, completing the task he had entrusted to her, her movements fluid yet precise, a testament to the disciplined strength cultivated through years of perseverance. The apartment seemed to recognize the importance of the event, every object and surface bathed in the gentle, unwavering light that illuminated both their figures, emphasizing the profound simplicity of loyalty, courage, and moral fortitude. Kang Junho, witnessing the culmination of her steadfast dedication, felt a sense of humility and clarity, of a recognition that her unwavering commitment had illuminated a truth he had long ignored, that the measure of a person's worth is found in the integrity of their actions and the dignity with which they navigate the world. As Mai completed the final gesture of her duty, a stillness settled over the room, profound and complete, a silence charged with respect and the subtle, undeniable presence of quiet justice, leaving Kang Junho in awe of the quiet, enduring strength she had displayed and the transformative power of true loyalty. The room remained steeped in quiet reverence, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows that danced slowly along the walls as if marking time itself. Kang Junho, reclining with a fragile dignity, watched Mai move with an effortless grace, her presence commanding attention without a single raised voice or overt gesture. Each motion she made was deliberate, precise, yet imbued with a calm empathy that resonated deeply within him, highlighting the stark contrast between her composed strength and the tumultuous life he had led surrounded by fear and expectation. The city beyond the tall windows continued its relentless pulse, oblivious to the intimate unfolding of loyalty and moral courage within the high-rise sanctuary. Yet the sounds of distant traffic and occasional hum of neon seemed muted in the face of the weight of the moment. Maya's dark eyes held a clarity that reflected not only understanding but foresight, a recognition of the gravity of her actions and the significance of Kang Junho's trust. She moved carefully around the room, performing each action with the careful deliberation of someone who understood that dignity could not be manufactured, only maintained through unwavering integrity. Kang Junho's chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, each inhalation filled with a mixture of anticipation, relief, and admiration for the steadfast resolve of the woman before him. Her hands, steady and purposeful, arranged the final details, every motion conveying the quiet affirmation that he was placing his final requests into capable hands, that the culmination of his legacy, fragile and human, was being handled with respect and thoughtfulness. The room itself seemed to recognize the gravity of her presence, the warm lamplight painting both of them in soft, golden hues, emphasizing the emotional resonance of the moment and the subtle authority she wielded without assertion. Kang Junho felt a stirring deep within, a humility that had eluded him throughout his years of command, an acknowledgement that the strength he had long sought in power was truly found in the unwavering character of Mai. He watched as she performed the actions he had entrusted to her, noting the fluidity and deliberateness with which she moved, the ease of execution underscored by the quiet moral clarity she carried. Every small adjustment, every considered placement of an item, spoke volumes more than any declaration of loyalty could, demonstrating the depth of her understanding, the breadth of her patience, and the courage inherent in steadfast service. In this silent exchange, where words were few but meaning was profound, Kang Junho comprehended that true influence was not wielded through control, threats, or dominance, but through trust, respect, and the unwavering adherence to what is right. Maya's presence provided a mirror to his own life, reflecting both the mistakes of the past and the lessons yet to be learned, a living testament to the quiet heroism of moral steadfastness. The apartment, bathed in gentle light, held its stillness as if paying homage to the moment, every surface and shadow participating in the subtle drama of loyalty and dignity. Kang Junho, absorbing the significance of her actions and the depth of her character, allowed himself a rare sense of calm, a recognition that the quiet, resolute strength of Mai would endure far beyond the ephemeral measures of power he had once prized, and in that serene, charged silence, he felt a profound affirmation that integrity and moral courage were forces capable of transforming not only the present moment, but the understanding of a life. The quiet of the apartment deepened as Mai moved with unerring precision, her presence dominating the space not through force but through the weight of her calm authority. The lamp light softened the edges of the room, bathing everything in a gentle warmth, casting long shadows that stretched across the walls in silent acknowledgement of the gravity of the moment. Kang Junho watched her with a mixture of reverence and introspection, noticing the subtle nuances of her movements, the careful placement of each item, and the measured pace with which she carried herself. Each gesture, simple yet deliberate, communicated volumes about her character, a language of integrity and thoughtful action that required no words to convey meaning. He could feel the impact of her presence, a profound sense of humility rising within him, a recognition that the strength he had long pursued in dominance and influence paled against the quiet power she exhibited through patience, loyalty, and moral clarity. The city outside continued its rhythmic life, unaware of the profound exchange unfolding in the apartment. Yet within these walls, the air was thick with a sense of transformation, a shift in understanding, and an acknowledgement of values long overlooked. I paused, her gaze lifting toward Kang Junho, dark eyes steady, unwavering, filled with a depth of comprehension that spoke to years of observing, learning, and quietly mastering the subtleties of human behavior. Kang Junho felt an unfamiliar softness in his chest, a blend of relief, admiration, and awe as he realized that he had underestimated the potency of unwavering moral courage. In the stillness, every small action she took seemed amplified, each measured movement a testament to the fact that dignity and virtue could shape circumstances more powerfully than any command or decree. She reached for the final element she needed to complete his request, her hands steady, her demeanor unflinching, embodying a confidence built not on fear or coercion, but on a deep understanding of what was right and just. Kang Junho observed the precision and intentionality with which she acted, each choice reflecting insight, consideration, and a steadfast adherence to principle. The room itself seemed to absorb the significance, the gentle hum of the city below becoming a background to the weight of the moral presence she carried, as if the apartment recognized and honored the culmination of her steadfast dedication. He could feel the lingering tension of the moment, the anticipatory quiet that marked the edge of change, the subtle, unspoken acknowledgement that her actions would leave a lasting imprint not only on him, but on the understanding of loyalty, respect, and the enduring power of ethical action. Mai finished her task, her movements fluid and purposeful, and for a moment, the room seemed suspended in a perfect balance, the soft light highlighting the quiet dignity with which she had conducted herself. Kang Junho, watching her with newfound clarity, felt the profound lesson of the evening settle in his mind, that the truest measure of strength is found not in fear or authority, but in the integrity of one's choices, the courage to uphold values quietly yet firmly, and the capacity to transform even the most ordinary actions into a testament of moral and human resilience. The evening deepened around the high-rise apartment, and the city lights outside flickered like distant constellations, creating a vast tapestry against the darkened sky. Inside, the atmosphere remained dense with anticipation, a quiet gravity that weighed upon every surface and shadow. Kang Junho, reclining on the bed with his frailty more apparent than ever, observed Mai with an intensity born not from suspicion but from awe and reverence. Every deliberate movement she made, from arranging the smallest objects to adjusting the subtle angles of light across the room, carried the unmistakable imprint of integrity and steadfastness. The apartment, filled only with the soft hum of the city below, seemed to amplify the significance of each gesture, as though the walls themselves acknowledged the moral weight of her presence. Kang Junho's chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, a rhythm that mirrored the tumult of realization coursing through him. He had spent a lifetime commanding respect, directing actions, and asserting dominance. Yet now he understood that the truest form of influence lay not in fear or authority, but in the quiet, unwavering presence of someone whose principles were unassailable. Mai moved with a careful deliberation that reflected both preparation and insight, her dark eyes steady, unflinching, and filled with the clarity of purpose that comes from a deep understanding of human character. She reached for a small, unassuming item that carried profound significance in this moment, presenting it to Kang Junho with a composure that made him acutely aware of the weight of his trust. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for it, feeling the steady assurance of her presence, a silent affirmation of loyalty, patience, and moral courage that he had rarely witnessed in his life. The apartment seemed to pause with them, the soft light catching the contours of their figures, emphasizing the solemnity and dignity that permeated every detail of the room. Kang Junho allowed himself to reflect on the countless moments he had overlooked the quiet power of integrity, realizing that Mai's steadfast actions had illuminated a depth of character that had been invisible in the chaos of his empire. Each measured motion she performed underscored the principle that true strength is not asserted but quietly demonstrated, that loyalty and dignity are cultivated through consistent, thoughtful action rather than demanded through fear or expectation. In the stillness, he felt a rare sense of clarity, an unspoken understanding that the culmination of her efforts and her unwavering attention to the moral dimension of his request would have a lasting impact beyond this room, beyond the moment, shaping how he viewed the world and the people who inhabit it. Maya's gaze met his once more, steady, composed, and filled with an almost tangible sense of purpose that reminded him of the enduring influence of integrity, the subtle but profound power of doing what is right without need for recognition or reward. The room, suffused with a quiet light and the soft cadence of anticipation, seemed to bear witness to this revelation, marking a turning point where the intersection of trust, ethical clarity, and human dignity became unmistakably evident. Kang Junho, witnessing the full measure of her character, felt both humbled and enlightened. A recognition that true moral courage is a force capable of transforming not only the immediate circumstances, but also the perception of life, loyalty, and the enduring significance of ethical action. The night pressed softly against the tall windows of the apartment, the cityscape stretching endlessly beyond, a mosaic of lights reflecting the pulse of life far below. Yet inside, the world had narrowed to the subtle drama unfolding between Kang Junho and Mai. He watched her with a gaze that carried both vulnerability and reverence, noting the fluidity of her movements, each one precise, each one weighted with the quiet authority of someone who understood the significance of every choice she made. The air felt dense with the gravity of anticipation, a suspended moment in which the ordinary details of a room, folded blankets, polished floors, carefully arranged objects, assumed profound importance as instruments in the demonstration of loyalty and moral clarity. Kang Junho's chest rose and fell slowly, unevenly, each breath an acknowledgement of the precarious balance between control and surrender, between past experience and present revelation. Mai paused at the edge of the room, her dark eyes meeting his with a steady confidence, the kind that communicated understanding without the need for words, a silent agreement that the action she was about to perform would honor both his trust and her own principles. He felt the warmth of the lamp light brush against the lines of his face, highlighting a mixture of humility and awe that he had rarely allowed himself to experience, the realization settling in that the truest form of strength he had ever encountered was manifest not in fear, command, or influence, but in quiet, deliberate, and morally grounded action. Mai lifted the small object, her hands steady, the weight of it negligible compared to the weight of the responsibility it represented, and approached Kang Junho with a calm that contrasted starkly with the fragility of his condition. He reached for it with tentative hands, the connection between them more than physical, an exchange of trust, acknowledgement, and moral weight that resonated deeply within him. The apartment seemed to participate in the moment, the soft hum of the city beyond muted by the intensity of the atmosphere, each shadow and reflection emphasizing the solemnity and precision of her presence. Kang Junho, absorbing the subtle mastery with which Mai conducted herself, felt a profound sense of clarity and appreciation for the rarity of such steadfastness, a recognition that the integrity and dedication she demonstrated were a force capable of transforming not only the immediate circumstances, but his understanding of loyalty, responsibility, and human dignity. Every motion she performed, each adjustment and placement, underscored a lesson he had long ignored. That power measured in fear or control was transient, but moral courage, thoughtful action, and unwavering respect for others could echo far beyond any empire, far beyond the confines of a single room. As Mai completed her task, the apartment settled into a palpable stillness, a silence filled with understanding, recognition, and the subtle triumph of ethical integrity. Kang Junho's eyes followed her final movements, and in that quiet, suspended moment, he acknowledged that he had witnessed a demonstration of true strength, an enduring lesson in trust, diligence, and the quiet but undeniable power of human dignity. The room remained bathed in the soft, golden glow of the lamp, its warmth contrasting with the cool expanse of the city beyond the windows, the lights of Seoul twinkling like distant stars scattered across the night. Kang Joon-ho watched Mai with a quiet intensity, noting the precision in every movement, the careful deliberation in every gesture, and the serene focus that seemed to govern her presence in the apartment. Each action she took, from adjusting the positioning of a simple object to the subtle arrangement of the soft furnishings around him, carried a weight that went far beyond the physical task, resonating deeply with the principles of trust, loyalty, and moral clarity. He could feel the significance of her attention in every breath he took, a reminder that his influence, vast though it had been, could never replicate the authenticity of character that Mai embodied effortlessly. The apartment, normally a space dominated by authority and expectation, now felt transformed, a sanctuary defined not by power or fear, but by integrity and respect, the atmosphere thick with the quiet force of her steadfastness. Mai paused to observe the room from his side, her dark eyes scanning the space with an awareness that encompassed both the tangible details and the intangible weight of the moment. Kang Joon-ho's chest rose and fell slowly, each inhale drawing in the gravity of the lesson unfolding before him, a revelation that had been years in the making but crystallized in this suspended night of care and attentiveness. The soft hum of the city below became a backdrop to the profound significance of their exchange, the rhythmic pulse of life continuing beyond the walls while inside. Every shadow and reflection emphasized the gravity of loyalty and the quiet demonstration of virtue. Mai extended a hand, guiding him through a small, deliberate act that carried far more meaning than the simplicity of the motion suggested, a reminder that the most significant demonstrations of character often appear understated yet ripple with lasting impact. Kang Joon-ho responded with a measured and tentative movement, feeling the trust she offered and the responsibility inherent in her moral clarity, each second steeped in a silent, almost sacred understanding. The room seemed to breathe with them, the ambient light catching the subtle contours of their forms, emphasizing the solemnity and intentionality of every gesture, highlighting the quiet triumph of integrity over circumstance. Kang Joon-ho, watching the culmination of her careful, thoughtful, and principled actions, experienced a rare blend of awe and humility, of the recognition that the steadfastness of character he had long overlooked held a transformative power far beyond any command or decree he had ever issued. Mai's unwavering presence, composed and morally resolute, illuminated the profound truth that trust, ethical action, and the silent strength of dignity could shape not only the immediate moment, but also the enduring understanding of human relationships, loyalty, and the subtle authority of integrity. As she completed the final motions of her task, a profound stillness settled over the apartment, each breath, each glance, each subtle movement marking the quiet arrival of justice, trust, and the enduring influence of moral courage, leaving Kang Joon-ho both humbled and enlightened by the sheer magnitude of the lesson in character that had quietly unfolded before his eyes. The apartment settled into an almost sacred silence, the city below continuing its rhythm, unaware of the profound exchange taking place above its streets. Kang Joon-ho lay back against the soft cushions, his eyes tracing the deliberate movements of Mai as she continued to ensure every detail was attended to, each gesture conveying an unwavering commitment to integrity and moral clarity. The subtle illumination of the lamp cast a warm glow across her face, highlighting the depth of focus and the quiet authority she wielded without assertion or display. Kang Joon-ho felt a wave of realization wash over him, the years of commanding respect and maintaining control suddenly dwarfed by the sheer force of her character and steadfastness. Each measured motion she performed, from adjusting the simple objects to the careful arrangement of the room, communicated a lesson he had long overlooked, that the truest influence arises from consistency, empathy, and an unyielding adherence to what is right. I paused briefly, her dark eyes meeting his, conveying an understanding of both the significance of the moment and the profound trust he had placed in her hands. Kang Junho, absorbing the weight of her presence, felt humility and awe intertwine, recognizing that moral courage and fidelity were far more impactful than any authority he had ever exercised. The apartment, suffused with soft light, seemed to participate in this moment, the shadows and reflections emphasizing the importance of every action and choice, marking a quiet but undeniable demonstration of dignity and virtue. He watched as Mai completed the final motions required of her, each step performed with deliberation and grace, revealing the subtle power inherent in moral steadfastness. Kang Junho's breath grew slower, his awareness sharpening as he reflected on the lessons encapsulated in her actions, acknowledging that the endurance of character and the exercise of integrity could reverberate far beyond this room, shaping understanding, respect, and human connection in ways that wealth and authority could not. Mai's presence illuminated the space, a silent beacon of moral clarity, her composure and meticulous attention serving as both guidance and inspiration. He felt the rare warmth of clarity settle over him, the recognition that loyalty, ethical consistency, and dignity carried a resonance unmatched by any empire or accumulation of power. The city lights below reflected softly against the polished surfaces of the apartment, but the brilliance within the room came from the steadfast courage and moral fortitude Mai displayed, a luminous presence that anchored the moment and defined the gravity of his final request. Kang Junho allowed himself to absorb the full significance of the scene, a rare serenity washing over him as he comprehended the depth of trust and ethical strength exemplified before his eyes. Every glance, every movement, every careful decision carried lessons of loyalty, courage, and unwavering respect, leaving him with a profound appreciation for the quiet, transformative force of character. In that stillness, the apartment held its breath with them, the weight of understanding and moral affirmation resonating through the air, and Kang Junho, witnessing the full measure of Mai's integrity and fortitude, felt both humbled and enlightened, grasping for the first time the enduring power of human dignity and the quiet justice that stems from unwavering loyalty. The apartment was bathed in the soft glow of the lamp, its warmth contrasting with the deep shadows cast by the night outside, the city stretching endlessly beneath them. Kang Junho observed Mai with a profound sense of realization, noting the calm determination that governed every movement she made, the meticulous care with which she handled each detail, and the unspoken authority she carried through the quiet force of her integrity. The atmosphere in the room had transformed into something almost sacred, a space where every gesture, every subtle shift of posture, conveyed lessons of loyalty, moral courage, and human dignity. The hum of the city below was softened by the walls of the apartment, allowing the weight of the moment to settle fully between them, each second thick with anticipation and quiet understanding. Mai's dark eyes met his with unwavering steadiness, her gaze communicating an awareness of both the significance of his trust and the responsibility she bore, a silent acknowledgement that the action she took would define the culmination of his request. Kang Junho felt an unfamiliar serenity in his chest, a mixture of humility and awe, as he realized the depth of her character and the transformative power of her presence. Every motion she performed, from adjusting the smallest objects to aligning the elements of the room, was imbued with the quiet precision of someone who understood the profound implications of her actions, the subtle authority that arose not from position, but from principle. He observed the way her hands moved with deliberate grace, the steadiness in her posture, the thoughtful consideration evident in every glance, and he felt a surge of appreciation for the moral clarity that guided her. The apartment seemed to participate in the moment, the soft lamplight reflecting off polished surfaces and creating a tableau that emphasized the significance of her actions and the moral weight they carried. Kang Junho allowed himself to absorb the quiet lesson unfolding before him, recognizing that the truest influence derives not from coercion or power, but from the integrity of one's choices, the consistency of ethical action, and the courage to uphold principles in the face of uncertainty. Maid's movements, precise yet unassuming, revealed a resilience that transcended circumstance, a steadfastness that commanded respect without assertion, a clarity of purpose that illuminated the room and anchored the moment. He could sense the culmination of trust, moral courage, and human dignity converging in her presence, a powerful demonstration of the quiet justice that comes from acting with unwavering integrity. Each breath he took was accompanied by the realization that the influence she embodied was enduring, that the ethical foundation she represented would outlast the temporary measures of power he had long relied upon. As she completed the final motions of her duty, the room fell into a stillness so profound that every detail, every shadow, every subtle reflection seemed to mark the significance of the moment, a testament to the enduring impact of loyalty, moral fortitude, and the quiet assertion of human dignity. Kang Junho, witnessing the full measure of her character, felt a sense of enlightenment and respect, a deep recognition of the enduring value of ethical action and the silent, transformative force of integrity. The apartment fell into a profound stillness, the night stretching endlessly beyond the windows while the city below glimmered like a distant constellation. Kang Junho lay reclined, a fragile figure illuminated by the soft glow of the lamp, his eyes following Mai as she moved with deliberate grace, each step and gesture, imbued with an unspoken authority that transcended words. She adjusted the last of the small items around him, her hands steady, her movements precise, reflecting the calm decisiveness that had carried her through every moment of trust and responsibility. The room seemed to expand and contract with her presence, each shadow, each reflection, and each particle of light participating in the silent acknowledgement of her moral clarity. Kang Junho felt a wave of insight and humility, recognizing that he had long misunderstood the nature of strength and influence, believing that power and control were paramount, only to discover that the quiet steadfastness of character could command far greater respect and effect more lasting impact. Mai paused, her gaze meeting his with a clarity that communicated both understanding and unyielding resolve, a reminder that the quiet assertion of dignity could shape outcomes in ways force or authority never could. He watched as she performed the final motions with unwavering attention, the meticulous care in her actions reflecting an inner strength forged through consistency, integrity, and the courage to act rightly without need for recognition. The room seemed suspended, a living tableau of human virtue. The faint hum of the city below softened to near silence in contrast to the profound resonance of the moment within. Kang Junho breathed deeply, absorbing the quiet lessons that had been unfolding in his presence, feeling a rare serenity as he acknowledged the weight of loyalty, moral fortitude, and the enduring significance of ethical action. Each small adjustment my Maid carried the resonance of a lifetime of discipline and principled living, demonstrating that true power is measured not in dominance or fear, but in the unwavering commitment to do what is right. The soft light highlighted the contours of her face and hands, emphasizing the quiet dignity that had guided her through countless trials and the profound effect it now had on him. Kang Junho felt a sense of clarity and enlightenment, the realization that the influence of integrity and the impact of principled action could extend beyond immediate circumstances, shaping perception, respect, and human connection long after the moment had passed. The apartment held its silence like a witness to the culmination of trust and ethical courage, every element of the space echoing the quiet triumph of moral consistency. As Mai completed the last of her deliberate actions, Kang Junho allowed himself to feel the depth of her impact, a recognition of the transformative power of steadfast character, the enduring force of loyalty, and the irreplaceable value of human dignity. In that still, luminous room, the lesson crystallized. Respect, integrity, and courage need no proclamation, yet their quiet presence can alter lives, define legacies, and leave an indelible mark on those fortunate enough to witness it. In that day, he understood fully what it meant to be guided by true moral strength, and the apartment, bathed in gentle light, seemed to hold its breath in reverent acknowledgement of the profound justice of character that had quietly prevailed.